Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. One of my first questions, since this is a budget hearing, is you're requesting a 20% increase, $2 billion extra. What is that primarily for? Is that for hiring extra people to administer the countless new rules that we're implementing? What is it for?
85% of that requested amount goes to our states and our regional programs for the delegated execution and implementation of the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act. A significant amount of that we hope will be used also for, as I was explaining earlier, to focus on getting our herbicides and our pesticides and new market entrants out there. Then we have resources that we're asking for on the enforcement side, which the Inspector General said we need to beef up. And then we have TSCA and some other programs as well. So it is sort of a base budget, but it's also 85% of that. I want to stress that. 85% of that goes to our state partners.
Okay, but to do what? Like, what do you need more money for? Is it to hire more people to implement these projects? Is it a hiring thing, or is it? It's
a mixture.
Still not clear what the money.
We do want to hire people. We do need additional capacity, but we'd also need resources for grants and other programs that, again, pass through to our tribal programs, to our state programs. So it's a mixture.
But how is that possible? The EPA got $60 billion in funding for projects and grants from the Infrastructure Jobs Act, another $41 billion because of the IRA. How could you possibly need more money on that front? I assumed that this $2 billion was to hire more people, but of course that doesn't make sense because your budget in 2010 was more than it was in 2023, and you had 2,000 more employees. So it seems like you can hire within your current budget.
I think that we all know that with congressional spending comes strings. We can't use bill dollars and IRA dollars to focus on pesticides, herbicides. We can't use those dollars to focus on TSCA. So those programs have specific spending requirements, and in order to stay within the letter of the law, we wouldn't dream of using those resources for things that are outside of those.
All right. Well, let's talk about things like pesticides and herbicides and the 151 regulatory proposals being considered right now. I don't have faith that the EPA is considering the cost to the American consumer, to the American worker, to your middle-class Americans that we are claiming to protect with these regulations. I don't have faith that the EPA takes that into account. There's things like this new rule proposing, there's a proposal for tailpipe emissions for light and medium passenger vehicles. Makes it harder for our most economically disadvantaged people to afford a car. I mean, is that taken into account? What kind of economic considerations are taken into account? What kind of cost-benefit analysis is taken into account with regulations like that? Whether it's that, or the plastics regulations, or additional regulations on herbicides and pesticides that hurt our farmers and make our food more expensive than it already has been made by the massive amounts of inflation. Is that being considered by the EPA?
It is, and I think that for those who are following, I think there's been 40 to 50 years of the Environmental Protection Agency not following the Endangered Species Act. Now we have the courts determining whether it's dicamba, chlorpyrifos, or all of these pesticides or herbicides that have to come off the shelves. Again, I said earlier, we're going to fight and we're going to litigate against that, but at the same time, the agriculture community has already said that there are a number of new market entrants that need scientific approval so that farmers have more tools. We need the people and the ability to get those tools out to our farmers. I spend a lot of time with our ag community, so I know that that's a real priority for them.
I have a question because there's a lot of additional regulations and rules being put forth on the oil and gas industry, but you do acknowledge that natural gas is the primary driver down of emissions in the United States over the past 20 years.
Yeah, natural gas plays a significant role in driving down emissions and energy security.
Sure, and so when 50% of our global emissions for power production come from foreign coal, you got to agree with the math here that we'd benefit. If the goal is lowering global emissions, we'd benefit greatly from exporting more of our natural gas, which we do cleaner than anyone else, to other countries and displacing their coal production.
I don't get into the export or import of natural gas, but what I can tell you is our technology standards and the Inflation Reduction Act specifically focuses on carbon capture and sequestration for a reason.
I like that part of it, but the methane, things like the methane tax, they hurt all natural gas producers. It's not a well-written rule that actually just targets methane. It hurts all natural gas producers. So, do you at least acknowledge that if we're not doing it, if we're not producing that kind of product, somebody else will, especially when by 2050, the demand for global energy will increase by 50%.
What you're referring to as the methane tax was written by Congress, not by us. I think our proposed regulation of methane is something that the industry asked us for on day one in this administration, and we're working with the industry. I think there's a lot of gas or lost product that's going to be captured. I think there's some technologies that we're looking forward to, and so we're having that conversation.
Well, I'm out of time. Thank you.